The expressed views, statements, and opinions by the guests on the Risk Advisor program made either during the show or on the corresponding social media and blog outlets are not necessarily the view or opinions of Baxter Productions, Inc. or any of its affiliates, associates, or others who are part of this production. Information provided during this broadcast is for news purposes only and does not constitute a remedy for any of the discussed risks presented.
There are growing concerns about the impact of digital technologies on children's emotional well-being. How bad is it, and what should you be considering? We're going to talk about that today on theriskadvisor.com.
The Risk Advisor. You're listening to the Risk Advisor Vodcast. The Risk Advisor highlights topics about the most important personal security and safety issues today. This is for you, your family, and your loved ones. Experts alert to trends, tactics, and techniques used against us. You can be more aware and more informed to stay safe in this ever-changing, complicated place we call life. And now your host, media's go-to guy, Sal LaFriere.
Welcome to the riskadvisor.com vodcast. We're here with Jennifer Desai, a child psychologist and director of special services in the New Jersey school system with over 20 years of experience in the field. Today we're going to talk about parents' concerns over social media. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sal. I'm excited to be here.
Good to have you back. So, obviously, educational system has changed over 20 years.
Yes.
Things are way different than when you first started to today.
Yes.
How so?
Mostly because of the technology that's available now, the technology that we use within the school system, and the technology that's affecting the students.
So obviously parents are wondering, is social media really causing anxiety for my child, or do I just have a cranky 15-year-old at home?
No, you have a child who's probably having social issues because of social media.
Okay, and talk to us a little bit about how that social anxiety develops.
So social anxiety develops because of a child's need to be on social media or on their social games 24/7. They don't want to miss out on anything that's going on. They need to be a part of it. And then the anxiety comes in of, what do I post? How do I post? Do I look good enough to post this? These are all things that create anxiety. And the more anxiety they have, the more they'll move away from social interactions, even using the media that they want to be on. And then that creates depression, and then becomes a vicious cycle of more anxiety, more depression.
And it would also create ADHD in a child.
Yes. There's all the side effect problems are inability to attend, loneliness, lack of sleep, which is a really big problem.
In one of the reports I saw, it actually listed paranoia as one of the disorders that was up. And it's just fascinating to think that we're talking about children having these paranoid, feelings.
Well, think of it this way. You're a child, you're posting something, and you're afraid that what you posted is going to get ridiculed by your friends. That's a valid fear. It gets labeled paranoia because you don't know what's going to happen. And most likely you're going to get a ton of likes and everything's going to be fine. But, you can spend a lot of time worrying about whether it's going to be appropriate or not. If you ever watched a 16-year-old take a selfie, you will be amazed, because it will take them 500 pictures to find the one that they think is good enough to actually post.
And speaking of teens taking selfies, the number's got to be high. Any studies on how many teens are actually using it?
Oh, teens on social media? The research shows that 95% of kids are on social media. We're talking about almost everybody.
And they use them different platforms as well. So they're not just on social media, just not being one thing that they're on. They're on multiple platforms.
Yes. Most kids are on anywhere from 5 or more platforms. So they're not just on Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram or, there's YouTube things. There's new ones coming out every day. So as parents, as adults, we're we're still learning all the new stuff that comes out, and we need to be aware of that.
So, how much time has there been a study that's done that says how much time they actually spend on social media?
Yes, it's astounding. Teens have been shown in research to spend an average of 9 hours a day on social media. And when they looked at the tweeners, that's your kids from 7, 8 to about 12 years old, they're spending 6 hours a day on average on social media.
Which, when you put the time in school, time in social media, and maybe a little bit of studying,
Let's do the math. You've got 7 hours minimum in school. That's saying that you have no after school activities or commitments, and 9 hours on social media. There's only 24 hours in a day. We've already taken up 18 of them or 19 of them.
and a big part of it is by something that's really not all that good.
No, it's not all that good.
Talk to us about high school students specifically with the rate of anxiety that they're under through the use of social media. It's separate and apart from being a teenager, right? Just what's the anxiety level?
So teens are reporting about 25 or so percent, sometimes up to 28% of them are reporting that they have experienced depression, and it's around social media issues.
Let's talk about the addictive behavior of social media. I think that's something that's sort of a fascinating component, if you will, of this.
Yes. So social media actually is addictive, and they make it that way. They're consciously designing apps and games to be addictive. One of the methods that they use is an intermittent reward system. It's very used very much in behavior modification. If I give you a reward, but you don't know when it's coming. So if you're training and you want to train someone, you give them a reward at first every time they do it. That's strong, but the strongest way to do it is never let them know when you're going to do it. So I give it to you the first time, then I don't give you to you 3 more times. So now you're going to do that behavior because you want that reward. So you're going to keep doing it. That's the strongest way to get a reward. So
It's
if
a lot like a
Facebook-
slot machine.
It's exactly like a slot machine. You put the coins in, you don't know how many coins you have to put in before you actually get that reward. So the rewards are the likes and the hearts and the followers and things like that are what give you the reward from those types of social media outlets. So that's what they're doing. They're going to use the science behind controlling your behavior and making you want to be on their app longer.
It almost sounds a little bit devious and a little bit problematic when you're talking about children. We're kind of talking about brain hacking almost, or getting in and throwing some switches.
Absolutely. They are hacking your brain. They are controlling how you use their app, when you use it, and what you use it for. They're actually bringing in neuroscientists to try to get to your brainstem level emotions, your fears, your loneliness, your anxiety, things like that if you put their app down, if you don't follow it, you are actually going to have anxiety about that. You're going to be fearful that you're missing something, that those core emotions are what they're trying to get to.
We talked about streaks that in one of the social media platform.
Yes.
About how the effect that has the desired effect of what they
Yes.
want.
So Instagram just came out with showing students how they have a streak. So kids it shows them how many days in a row they've talked to the same person. There has been reports of teenagers having streaks of more than 2 years. So every day they've talked to the same person for more than 2 years. That's a lot of pressure to keep that up.
It's just mind-boggling when you think about that we're talking about children, and when you look at all of the things that are bad about social media. Is there any good out of it? Is there anything that they can do that's good?
There are some good things because there are forums and places where kids can talk to other kids about things that they're going through. Those are the good aspects about the internet and things that are available, but that's not what the kids are using.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation on this mind control of children and what you can do as a parent to protect your child. We'll be right back.
Sir, the chairman of the board is on the phone.
Let me ask you something. Workplace violence, terrorism, identity theft, cyberbullying, and stalking. It's not a matter of if they will happen, it's a matter of when. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Can you tell the board of directors you did all you could? The security world is too complicated to do it alone. You need a security advisor, someone you trust, to get straight answers, to tell you what you need to hear, not want to hear. Call Protective Countermeasures now. Protective Countermeasures has been providing security consulting to Fortune 500 companies for nearly 20 years. Make the call. The call is confidential. This is one secret you can keep. Call today, 914-576-8706, or visit us at protectivecountermeasures.com.
You're watching the Risk Advisor podcast, and we're back with Jen Desai talking about addictive behaviors that have been built into social media. Jen, let's talk a little bit about the tech moguls, the people that are actually building and designing this technology. Found that fascinating. What's the story with them?
So the tech moguls, the ones that are in Silicon Valley and the other tech areas, they are not sending their children to schools that use technology. They are sending their children to private schools like Montessori or Waldorf. Waldorf is the biggest one now that's growing exponentially because they are zero tech schools. They do not use any technology. They focus primarily on building the child's social, emotional, and intellectual well-being. This is if the people who are producing these things won't let their children use them, why are we letting ours? Steve Jobs and Bill Gates did not let their children have any technology that they were producing until they were well into their high school years. That says a lot to me.
Wow, that's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the different types of disorders that are that pop up. Obviously, depression, anxiety, the suicidal ideation. Mm-hmm. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So, suicidal ideation is when you have the thoughts and feelings that suicide might be the answer. You're maybe coming up with a plan. This is a big warning sign. You know, if you ever find that your child has a written plan somewhere or they're talking about it to their friends, that's a big problem. That's something you want to get attention for right away.
And one of the terms that we hear quite often is social anxiety disorder.
Social anxiety disorder is when you avoid social situations, you're uncomfortable with them, it causes anxiety and depression. You don't want to be with other people and you avoid it at all costs.
With all of the social media, are we becoming socially inept?
Absolutely.
Is really affecting?
It is affecting not only teens but also adults because if you do not want to communicate with people face to face, how are you saying you're a social being? A lot of adults communicate only via text. They'll say, "Don't call me. I want to text you. I want to email you. I want to IM you." That makes for difficult conversation. You don't actually know what the person's tone is when they're being sarcastic, when there's humor used, things like that. So yes, we're becoming socially inept.
It's funny. I was dealing with millennials, and we were talking about being on the phone, and I said, why don't you just pick up a phone and call? And they go, that's very intrusive.
Yes.
We won't do that. We would rather text. And it's like, yeah, but why are we going to go through, 17 texts when I can ask you a simple question and get a quick answer?
Yes. And you have to actually text a person to ask them if it's okay to call them.
Yeah, well, who's the celebrity that just came out the other day? I should have known the name. but he did 2.5 Men after Charlie Sheen got out. Put a thing out there about he put his cell phone number out for people to call him. And when they called it, the reporters that were doing it in the news, when they went out and they actually called him, there was the message that he left was, "Who leaves voicemails? Text me." It just kind of puts it all in, just
puts it in perspective.
Puts it in perspective. But on a serious note, let's talk about cyberbullying and some of those issues that are coming up. Everybody granted it's bad,
Yes.
but there are different effects for boys as there are to girls. Do women or young ladies have a bigger issue dealing with it?
Yes.
Why?
Women tend to cyberbully more. They're more social creatures by nature. So when they want to attack someone, they will do it using social media. It tends to be something that happens, especially in middle school. That's the worst area. Boys don't tend to do that. Boys don't go to social media right away. You hand a boy a phone, they go on a video game. You hand a girl
porn.
a phone.
Or porn.
Or porn.
It's true.
But you hand a girl a phone, they go right to social media, they find out who's getting picked on, and they join the gang. You want to be part of the group that's doing the likes or the dislikes, or, they will socially ostracize each other. It's what happens with girls, unfortunately.
And it's a larger percentage. Girls are actually reacting, I guess, what we would attribute boy behavior to be. So
Yes.
in some way, we're looking at role reversal.
Yes. It's almost 50% of girls that get cyberbullied at some point in their lives, where it's only about 20% of boys. So that's a big difference. The boys aren't looking for that. They're looking for the gaming. They're looking to shoot things. And blow things
Ashton
up.
Kutcher, that's the
Ashton
guy.
Kutcher, there you
Ashton
go.
Kutcher, that's the guy. I knew at some point I'd get it. All right. Let's talk about, sort of in the last minute or so, let's just talk for the segment, let's talk about sleep. Teenagers, inevitably parents would always talk about kids just sleeping, 14, 15 hours, and sometimes some parents thought that the kids were dead, that they hadn't moved in such a long time. That's not the case anymore.
No. As we said before, we're looking at about 6 to 9 hours of social media plus 7 hours of school. That leaves you maybe, 4 to 8 hours of sleep. But that's getting interrupted as well, because whenever that notification comes through, that child will feel that they have to answer it. So even if they're trying to get sleep, it's interrupted sleep. I've watched teenagers wake from a dead sleep because they heard that ping and answered something and then put the phone back down and went back to sleep. It's an amazing thing. They'll sleep with their phone right on them.
Afraid they're going to miss out on something.
Afraid they're going to FOMO.
Afraid they're going to miss out on something.
Afraid they're going to miss out on something. So
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what parents need to take a look out for their children and the steps that they can take. We'll be right back.
From the files of New York detective Frank Santasola comes a riveting murder mystery novel, The Garbage Murders. After an illicit liaison with his mistress, the owner of a private sanitation company in Newark is murdered. His wife, aware of the affair, first believes it could be the motivation for the killing. But when her truck drivers are attacked by her husband's associates, family values get questioned. Enter the life of Detective Frank Miranda, one of a few men in law enforcement assigned to infiltrate the Italian mob and bring to justice some of the biggest names in organized crime history. Be taken into the world of an infiltrator and the personal decisions and sacrifices he made daily. Guaranteed to touch all your emotions: sadness, anger, love, and laughter. Available on Amazon Books in both paperback and Kindle editions.
TheGarbageMurders.com.
You're watching the Risk Advisor podcast, and we're back with Jen Desai, a child psychologist and practitioner, talking about social media, its effects on children, and what parents should be on the lookout for. So we've talked about some of the moguls, the tech moguls, and them not wanting to have their children use it. We've talked about some of the disorders that the children are running into and some of the problems. So let's go through some of the steps that parents should actually take. And I think one of the first ones is always going to be, the question comes up, at what age should my child be involved in social media? What age should that be?
So research has shown that the youngest they would advise a child to have any kind of social media would be age 13. They recommend Snapchat. It's also easy for parents to follow and easy for them to be able to monitor what's going on, who's responding, and who it can go out to.
Although Snapchat, wasn't that the one that they could actually take pictures? So if there was an inappropriate picture that was sent, they could actually, instead of it disappearing in 30 seconds, they could have taken a screenshot of it and it was there forever.
Yes.
Okay,
but
now
you
it's
can
simple.
you can do that with anything, and a screenshot is a picture of anything that was posted. So as you've seen in the news lately, where somebody would post something on Twitter and they'd immediately take it down, someone screenshotted it and put it up. So you can do that with any type of social media outlet.
And that just goes to the general concession that you don't want to put anything out on social media at all, or even in an email that you don't want the world to see.
No. Once something is made digital, it is forever. It goes into wherever that cloud thing is, and it's forever. So one of the things we talk to teenagers about, and we encourage parents to talk to teenagers about, is never put anything on digital, even if it's just a picture on your camera that you never post. Once something's digital, it's forever.
One of the other steps, checking the privacy settings on your accounts. You could do that on Facebook. You could do that on the other social platforms. Why is that important?
Because you want to know who this information is going out to. Who is your child interacting with? Not only setting your child's privacy, but having conversations with them about that so they don't change it when your back is turned is important. So it's important to have that conversation with them about why you're doing it and why they're setting it up and how you're doing it. The other important thing that we tell parents is that they should be looking at the different monitoring apps. And there are a whole bunch of them out there. New ones come out all the time that help them to monitor what's being said, what's being posted. They have alerts that can happen. So that search keywords, things like that. So if the child is talking about, suicide or depression or anxiety or things like that, those things can be picked up as well.
How does a parent start the conversation with the child? We're talking about such a sensitive topic, right? Where the parent, and I guess it comes from different sources, right? So the first one where the parent is totally oblivious and is trying to have a conversation. Then the parent is somewhat oblivious, not oblivious and realizes what's going on,
Right.
to the point where where there may be some concepts being floated about around suicide. And I'm gonna guess at this point that if a parent's at that stage and is aware of the child's talking about it, then you need intervention right away.
Right, and that's where you would go to your pediatrician, or your school district has a lot of resources that we can give you to help you find others that can help the child. But the important thing is to have conversations with your child, and not just how was your day. So what happened on social media?
So how do you start that conversation with them? What do you say?
Let me see what you have on social media.
Because
what happened?
I got to tell
Who
you, to a
talked
lot of
who posted what? Show it to me.
To a lot of parents, it's got to be like having a sex talk with your child.
It's
It's awkward and don't want to have that conversation.
It probably is, but just like the sex talk, it's very important to have with your child because it can lead to unforeseen consequences. Well, actually, I guess we can foresee them. Consequences that can have a detrimental effect to your child.
So how does a parent start that conversation with the child? What do they do?
ask them about what's going on social media. Have them show you if they've gotten posts and what those posts are and what they're talking about, because you can see from those posts if there's cyberbullying going on, and it may not be towards your child, but it could be another child. That opens up the conversation. Why would you say that or do that to a friend? Why would, has it been done to you? How do you feel about that? What do your friends talk about when these kinds of things happen and people gang up on one child? So that's an opening to it.
So I've done talks with, these volunteer talks to middle school and high school, both to the children and to the parents, talking about the dangers of social networking. And more times than not, I'd have parents coming up to me and telling me about problems that they were having on social media and not the kids.
Yes.
And the kid's just standing there next to the parent, feeling all kinds of embarrassed. I can't believe my mother's this stupid, and got herself involved. So in that regard, if a parent and a child is having it, is it something that you admit that you're uneducated about and try and get the child to educate you, or do you take the strong position? You try and be, the more intelligent one, to be the adult. What's the approach?
Honesty is the best policy. The kids are going to know when you're lying. They're going to know if you don't know what you're talking about. In school, we say, show me what it is. Because you know what? They know what's going on. We don't always know. They show us. So learning goes both ways. It's also a nice life lesson that, adults don't know everything. Sometimes you might know something more, but you can teach them. And that's an okay thing to happen. So it's important to have conversations with your kids. If you say, what's the new social media? What are you on? There's a new thing on YouTube that I had never even heard about until I did some of the research for this show, where kids are posting these music video things, and it's all about gathering followers for your music videos that you're doing. So I didn't know about that. So apparently it's very popular now. So unless you have that conversation with your child about what's the new thing, what are you on? Show me what's going on. Did somebody posted something? Can you show it to me? Then you're going to start to get a better understanding of what they're living through and what they're dealing with.
Where can parents go? What's one stop that they can make if they're going to go online? What's one place they can go to, and how do they get educated?
One of the ones that I find very helpful is Child Mind Institute. This is not an advertisement for them. It was just a website that had a lot of really good information for parents. You can also talk to your child's school counselor. They have a lot of information. They're usually pretty well connected to what's going on in the kids' lives and what's going on in social media and things like that. Because the kids talk to them.
Cool. Well, we want to say thank you again to Jennifer Desai for coming in and talking to us about a topic that none of us really want to have, but it is important to have, and it's important to have with the children. And we'd like to remind you that if you have a question or a comment, you can please write us at questions@theriskadvisor.com, or you could follow us on our social media accounts, and you could find all of those on links to our website at theriskadvisor.com. Remember, you can also watch the show, and of course, you could always stream it at theriskadvisor.com. Thanks again for watching, and we hope that you tune in next week. Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed this show. If you have any questions, would like to appear on the program, or recommend a guest, contact us at theriskadvisor.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. View and listen to us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Roku TV. Tune in live on various local radio stations. Find links to all of these and listen to past shows at theriskadvisor.com. Thank you for listening, stay safe, and join us again next week for another episode of The Risk Advisor. Workplace violence, terrorism, identity theft, cyberbullying, and stalking. It's not a matter of if they will happen, it's a matter of when. The security world is too complicated to do it alone. You need a security advisor. Call Protective Countermeasures now. Protective Countermeasures has been providing security consulting to Fortune 500 companies for nearly 20 years. Call today, 914-576-8686. S1.E05. ProtectiveCountermeasures.com.
TheRiskAdvisor.com.